by the time you hit this bottom, your average rate of return has gotten horribly bad, right? And the thing that makes it worse for people is that when the market goes down, because of the fact that very few people have savings, what people invest, they don't save. And sadly, a lot of people that have money invested in these accounts don't have any savings, so they don't have access to liquid savings. I looked up a statistic the other day. Less than 70% of people in this country have access to $2,000 in case of emergency or opportunity when they need it the most. Hey, what's going on, cash flow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and I'm back with you for video number 3 of this series about the 3 greatest lies that Wall Street is telling you about your money. And for this video, I want to talk to you about the lie that they tell you that the younger you are, the more risk you can take. Now, before I get into why this is a lie, I do want to say this. I understand why they say the lie. So it's not, out of all the lies, it's probably the least bit of a lie, right? It's kind of like the biggest white lie, so to speak. But it's also misleading, and it gets people to kind of think about money improperly, and I think it's a dangerous lie, even though it's kind of marginalized, because they're kind of right. Because think about it this way, is the younger you are, they say the younger you are, the more risk you can take. And technically, I guess it's not a lie because of the fact that, let's face it, the younger you are, the more risk you can take, right? Because if you're 25 and you lose 50 grand or 100 grand, not that many 25-year-olds have 100 grand to lose, but let's say you did, and you lost that money, well, guess what? Now you have, let's say you want to retire when you're 40, you got 40 years to make up for it, right? And so no problem. Whereas if you're 60 and you have the same amount of money saved and you lose that 100 grand, you have less time to make up for it. So therefore, the younger you are, the more risk you can take, because time is on your side. You have time to make up for it. But what I want to do, I want to flip that on its head. And I tell you, the younger you are, the less risk you have to take. And the reason is the wonderful world of compounding interest. And when you understand that compound interest works for you, and you can either earn it or you can pay it, and there's opportunity cost with every decision that you make. Now, the last video I talked about the average rate of return versus the real rate of return, and that being the second lie, and really understanding how the difference between those two impacts your wealth potential, right? And really understanding that will have a huge impact in how you make your financial decisions, right? Because not all investments, this idea of like, I'm going to average 8% in my returns, that may be true, but it doesn't matter, right? So what I'm going to talk to you about in this is when you think about that and you break it out long term, I want to break this down and go to the whiteboard one more time here and talk to you about the fact that from a market cycle perspective, it's important to understand that we are going to go through cycles in the economy, right? So let's break it down this way. So let's say we have a cycle, and when you're, let's build a timeline, right? And we're gonna say, all right, you're here, and you're gonna go to here. And let's say you're 25 here, and you're 65 here. So the important thing to understand with market cycles is every 8 to 12 years, you're gonna have what we call a boom bust cycle. So let's say, for assumption, we'll split the difference and we'll say every 10 years, you're gonna have a boom bust cycle. So we got so we're gonna go 35, this might not be to scale, 45, and then 55, okay? So we're gonna say this is a 10-year mark, this is another 10-year mark, this is another 10-year mark, and then of course this at the end is a 10-year mark. So what this is saying is that these cycles, what typically happens, if you look through history, this is as predictable as the day is long, that the market is gonna go up, and then it's gonna come down, right? And then it's gonna go up, and it's gonna come down, but you notice it takes a long time to go up, and a lot of the gains that you had lost, not all of them, notice, so the bottom here is higher than the bottom where we started. The bottom here is higher than this bottom, right? So we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's getting better and better and better, but it's these cycles that perpetuate, right? And that one's a little out of whack, but you get the point, right? And so boom, and then it will crash again, right? So the concept here is, like Warren Buffett says it best, is you got to make money when there's blood in the streets. Now, I do a video on this called the Life 180 Pyramid Talk. I'm not going to get into all of this right now, but when we talk about the younger you are, the more risk you can take, and when we combine that with the last video about the average rate of return versus the real rate of return, obviously in these periods here, and I'm going to switch colors just so you can see what I'm writing, obviously in these periods here where you're going well, the average rate of return feels really good because you didn't have any down years, right? So I could average 10, 15% there, but when the market plummets right here, right, and we go down in value, then, by the time you hit this bottom, your average rate of return has gotten horribly bad, right? And the thing that makes it worse for people is that when the market goes down, because of the fact that very few people have savings, what people invest, they don't save. And sadly, a lot of people that have money invested in these accounts don't have any savings, so they don't have access to liquid savings. I looked up a statistic the other day. Less than 70% of people in this country have access to $2,000 in case of emergency or opportunity when they need it the most, right? So think about this. And like when you look at this fact, this just goes to show when times get hard. Think about this. When these markets corrections happen, think 2008, think dot-com bubble, think COVID, when it got really bad for people. The rich got richer, the poor got poorer, right? The markets are doing really well, but I think most families around will look around and be like, life isn't necessarily as good as I want it to be, right? And so when you look at these numbers, the reason these things are happening and this wealth gap is growing between the wealthy and the middle class is because wealthy people understand that this period right here is where you make your money. When you can't ever time the top, you can't ever time the bottom, but you want to get as close to this as possible, right? And so this is the concept, right? The average rate of return doesn't matter. And so what I'm saying is, when you're younger, these cycles, if all it takes in a 40-year cycle is one or two of these cycles to just completely interrupt compounding and derail the results that you're going for. You could start off from 25 to 35, be off to a great rip-roaring start, and then if something goes bad on you, the wheels are going to come off, and now it's even in the first 10 years, it's almost impossible to make up for those negative losses. Now you can, absolutely, but you have to work much, much harder to get that return. You got to stash more money away, so on and so forth. So, what's important to see here is that now as this goes up again, you're back to feeling good. And this is kind of what I teach people. This is why I say, rather than this, why don't, instead of going after and doing what everybody else does, let me see here, I'm going to get this color here. Why don't we do a line that goes a little slower, right? That we could do this, right? And just control it. And what happens is, in these moments, like let's say this moment right here, right? We're talking, I'm just going to draw a line up for the timeline. In that moment right there, because we had access to this money, we did the right thing, and we had liquidity use and control that money. Because remember, most people are saving this money or investing this money. They don't have control of that money without paying taxes and penalty to gain access to it, right? You could do that, and you gained access to this. Now you have an opportunity fund. This money on this line is an opportunity fund, right? Now you're able to buy depressed assets, and as it goes all the way up, you could leverage this money that's on this line and buy low and ride it up high. And when you do that, you can maybe, and I would say never wait till the peak, get out somewhere in this area right here, but you cash out, and all the while what that would do was it would elevate this, right? And it would grow faster and faster, and you do the same thing right here, and it would elevate it even more, and you do the same thing right here, and it would elevate it even more. So, at the end of the day, understanding that, that old adage of the younger you are, the more risk you can take is kind of just a backwards way of thinking. Think about it this way. In what world does anybody say, except for personal finance, that the way to get where you want to go is to increase your chance of loss? Because don't ever make any mistake about it. Risk, when it comes to your money, when we say the younger you are, the more risk you can take, that's saying speculate more, take more risks. What happens with more risk is you increase your chances of losses. So yes, that can help you get there, but if you want to get there on a more predictable, guaranteed basis, you want to put your money in a place where you cannot lose it. Because guess what? The younger you are, the less risk you should take, because you have compounding on your side. And if you know anything about compound interest, The one thing you don't want to do is interrupt it. And when you allow these times, at the 10-year marks here, and I'm gonna use this nice coral color. When you use at these times right here, if you lose money in these periods of times, that is going to crush everything, right? That is going to destroy all your plans. So you need to make sure that you understand that you're utilizing compounding, you're allowing your money to grow, you're keeping liquidity, use, and control of your money, that you're preparing yourself for opportunity, because that's what wealthy people do. Warren Buffett says it best: you got to make money when there's blood in the streets. And so this is my sloppy drawing explaining exactly what he means by that and how he does it. Now, never invest in anything you don't understand. I'm a big believer in getting real estate and cash flow assets and not investing in the stock market just because that's my style. That's more what I'm into. Everybody's got their own thing. Maybe you like to buy businesses at depressed values. Maybe you like to buy real estate. Maybe you like to buy other cash flow assets. I know people that buy and fix and flip cars. Like, it's all over the map right now. Fixing and flipping used cars right now is a phenomenal business. If you look at the car inflation that's going on, there's so much opportunity depending on what your skill sets are. I promise you, whatever your skill set is, you have the ability to monetize it if you set a system up around it. It's the ultimate side hustle. The thing I'm passionate about is I always tell people, your greatest need in life is not to get a bigger financial need. Your greatest financial need, I should say, in life isn't to get a bigger rate of return on your money. It's to increase your earning capacity, your earning power. And the only way you do that is by creating a system that allows you to do that. Now, you can go do a side hustle. You could drive Uber or Lyft or do something like that. It'll drive you crazy. You'll have no life. You'll be gone all the time. You won't be doing something you enjoy. Or you can set up a system that allows you to show up more powerfully in your life and do something to create a side income that will increase your earning capacity, force you to become more so you can do more, so you can create more, and ultimately hopefully give more in the process. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, any comments, comment in the comment section below. I'll do my best to engage with everything. Make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe, hit that bell, that way you get notified every time I launch a new video. And until next time, I hope you have a blessed, inspirational day, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.